Hi everyone, my name is Gitika Gorthy, and today I'm very honored and excited to be interviewing a very special space champion, Miss Kristen Yip. Kristen is a senior education program manager for Blue Origin's nonprofit Club for the Future. Prior to joining Club, Kristen taught middle school and high school science in the Seattle and Bellevue school districts, as well as in international schools in China. She then worked as the lead STEM program manager for a federally funded grant, Gear Up grant, out of the University of Washington, where she helped create STEM programming for low-income, first-generation, and students of color in four school districts south of Seattle. Kristen currently creates STEAM lessons and resources that can be utilized in formal and informal education to inspire students to go into STEAM and space careers. As you can see, Kristen is a champion for education and more specifically aerospace education. And today I'm very excited to learn a little bit about her career journey and her current work with the Club for the Future. So welcome, Kristen. Thank you so much for taking your time to inspire the next generation of aerospace leaders.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, to kick off our conversation, I wanted to jump in a little bit more about your role because I know Club for the Future works with so many different education systems and on so many different initiatives. So currently, what keeps you busy? What does your role entail? What does the day-to-day look like? And what are some of the current projects you're working on?
Yeah. For those who don't know, Club for the Future was a nonprofit that Blue Origin started back in 2019. And it was really started because of this, we felt this need for more people to come and join us in this space endeavor that we have. Blue Origin's vision is millions of us living and working in space for the benefit of Earth. And we realized in order to take this up, we're going to need a lot more people helping us help build that road. And we're going to need generations and generations to start this work. And so in order to help build that pipeline, they started this nonprofit. And so our goal is to get students really just interested in pursuing STEAM careers. If it's space that they're interested in, that's great. But we realize, even if it's in another aspect of STEAM, that still helps further us as a human race into, further technologies. And so we're really excited about this work. And so we really have a few programs. We have our Access to Space, which is, we did physical postcards. We're also doing now digital art to space. So students can submit their art on a website and then we launch it to space on a rocket. And once it's flown, they'll get it back as a space flown keepsake and they can kind of see their art against everyone else's art in the world. And that's really just to get the excitement going. But some of our really big programs is, providing educators with lessons and resources that they can use to engage more students in these space topics. And that's really where I come in. I was a former educator, as you mentioned before. So I kind of manage all our resources for formal and informal educators. So our lessons that are free on our website, and these, span from like 1 day activities to like whole units where it's multiple days of lessons. Um, and then also, I manage our partnerships with anyone who does any kind of outreach with students, whether it be school districts or organizations that also do work with K-12 students. And then, we also have our Club Ambassador program. And I think that's one of our greatest assets at Blue Origin is all our employees are so excited to go out and speak with students. And so we kind of help manage that volunteer program of matching our Blue Origin employees, which we call Club Ambassadors, with any kind of K-12 event or classroom or, just community event where they want guest speakers or mentors or tutors and whatnot. So yeah, it keeps us busy. We do work all around the world, not just the United States. And, sometimes we do big events and sometimes we are training educators at, educator conferences to share our lessons because we really think of educators as, our force multiplier, our greatest asset, where we're really trying to empower them because they're the ones that are really the ones that empower their students.
That's amazing. Yeah, all the initiatives that club has are really incredible. I loved the ambassador program specifically. I've taken advantage of it, connecting students with mentors through that platform, and it's been a great resource. So I can only imagine how many students, how many professionals in this industry, young professionals, are taking advantage of opportunities like that. And, one of the things I am really curious about for club is their main goal right now continuing to get these educational resources into classrooms, so expanding more of that outreach? Or are there other new initiatives that Club would like to embark in the coming years in terms of the education space?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always trying out new things, right? Trying new ways of engaging with students. We're hoping to come out with more platforms that students can engage with, more directly, without like some adults engaging them, right? Like they can come on the platforms and do things. That was one thing that came out of, our digital art program, right? They can engage directly. And we'll have some more programs rolling out soon. But I think really, if we think about it, right, educators are the ones in the classroom every day. Educators are the ones that are there with the students. They're the ones that can make that little difference that sparks an interest within a student and makes it so all of a sudden they want to be an aerospace engineer, or they want to go into rocket manufacturing, whatever it is. We see as like educators really is the boots on the ground, right? Like they're the ones with them every day, and we can only do so much, right? We aren't with the students every day, and so we think of educators as, I mean, the biggest asset that we have. And so yes, providing them with these resources, providing them with trainings on these topics, providing them with guest speakers. I think that that is something that we're going to continue doing, and we're going to continue growing, just because I think that that is the way to really get to students.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I've interviewed so many individuals in my own personal story getting into this space. A common thread is a teacher or someone in the classroom who is like, introduce them to this idea of space. And when that seed is planted, I think there's so many resources as a young professional or as a college student to kind of get into this industry. But if you don't have that initial seed that's kind of planted, that motivation for you to enter this space, it's a little bit more difficult. And so I totally agree with that idea. I think that's what we do with Ignited Thinkers as well, is trying to plant that seed at an earlier age to give that inspiration and motivation for students to believe that they can actually enter this industry.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
definitely I think the focus is perfect. And one of the largest complaints I have heard from teachers is we want to bring this curriculum into our classrooms, but we don't have a background in this space. And so, we don't feel confident enough to talk about rockets when we have no aerospace education background at all. So I know Blue is working towards training teachers and providing these accessible resources for any teacher or educator who's listening right now who wants to bring space education to their classrooms but are nervous about it. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I mean, as a former teacher myself, right? I taught chemistry. If you told me I had to teach like biology, oh my gosh, that would be pretty much the end of my world right now. And so, going into these things, that's the kind of mindset that I have when writing these lessons that we have is, can a teacher take it from zero knowledge to just implementing it with their students? And one way we do these with our lessons is by providing them all like the background information. We provide videos in our lessons that they can play for students that give students more background information and keeps it more exciting. And then I also, in a lot of the lessons, if you've noticed the newer lessons, like since my coming on, a lot of the lessons come with full-on scripts. So I write it out so it's slide by slide. What are you talking about? What are you saying? What is some information that you might need to know in order to answer some of these questions from students? And so I really try to lay it out the best I can for a teacher, knowing that they probably don't know about these topics, right? So if you think about it, space really hasn't been in our like science curriculum. I mean, there's a little with Earth and space, but that's just like, how do our systems work within each other? Not so much these specific
Right.
space technology topics.
Yeah.
Um, topics. So that's why I really try to keep those educators in mind and, really try to make it as easy as possible, as late as possible. The student worksheets also come with a key, so the answers are there for educators. And then also, I think if there's more questions, they always can reach out, always can do more research. But they also can like request one of our, subject matter experts to come in and speak more on the topics, right? So like we have a lesson on, satellites and space debris. Maybe they request a Blue Origin employee that knows a little bit more about satellites and issues with satellites, or knows more about physics and the momentum of debris and like how one debris off course can, cause enormous damage with the ISS. Have them coming in and being the experts to talk with students about those topics. Those are also options. And really, I also think it's I try not to choose topics that are just so difficult, right? The goal is to get students excited and really bridge what students are learning in the classroom to careers in that. And so we're not trying to go, very deep into like let's talk about, all the aerospace engineering behind all this, right? It's really just like, hey, these are some cool space topics. And if you're interested in this now, you can like pursue that as a career in the future, and this is what you can do with it. And I think that's really the nice sweet spot that we come in, because we have that industry kind of thought for it, and so we can bridge that gap.
That's incredible. I actually didn't know about the scripts that, you all have provided in your newer lessons. And so I know a lot of teachers probably listening are excited about that, and being able to connect with an industry mentor is very, very valuable. And although like in school curriculums, at least in Virginia, which is where I grew up, although space was not directly a topic that was talked about at great length, other than like the solar system, planets, and like the moon phases, there was like a lot of, topics around technology and career development. And so now providing these resources so that teachers can integrate it with space and bring in more of that space technology component into classrooms is really exciting. And now that the industry is rapidly evolving, just in this past 5, 10 years, I can really see this education component of space becoming more and more valuable in classrooms. So yeah, that's very exciting. And I'm curious, as an educator yourself, how do you see, being at one of the leading companies at this, how do you see space education evolving in and outside of classrooms in the next maybe 10 years? Because, like you said, a lot of curriculums right now don't really talk too much about space. So, how do you envision, if you just had to make a prediction of how the education space would change in the next coming 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a really interesting kind of new space age. Things are growing rapidly. I think the more and more we think about how we're going to be living in space or utilizing space resources, it's going to be more and more of a topic. And I think more and more of it will be integrated in, how we kind of educate our students, especially in this age of like AI and like, computers and everything being like just technology based. It's going to be more and more a topic that will be of interest to students and also like necessity to teach. And I also think, we are a growing workforce, right? And we're predicting that more and more jobs will be needed in aerospace and space. And so, like in the future, right, and even now, we are still looking for a lot of, even aerospace engineers, but also aerospace engineers that have that like technical skill. And so, like, we really need students that like can do hands-on building, but also do like the designing and problem solving and all that. And I think those skills have always been needed, right? Like those are always things that we as teachers want our students to have, but it's going to be more and more a necessity as we move into these industries. And so I see it growing, and I'm hoping that it trickles down from industry to, colleges and universities to high schools, that like this is the things that we need in our workforce in the future if we are to continue going down the path that we are going down.
Yeah, and I can already see the change. I mean, my university added in an aerospace engineering minor. We've never had a major for it before. So it's really cool that the engineering school added a minor. And then I know a few medical schools, like the University of Pittsburgh recently added like a space medicine component to their medical school. And
Mhm.
I just think it's really exciting how industry experts and just professionals in general are starting to recognize the interdisciplinary need to invest in interdisciplinary careers in space. So it is very exciting and it's starting to already happen. So I'm really excited to see what it'll look like in the coming few years. And I am a little bit more curious on your personal end about your career journey into this space. Because, when I was reading your background, you are a true educator. You came from a very STEM education background, but not necessarily aerospace. So I am curious, what was your aha moment that inspired you to enter the aerospace sector? And how did you end up combining it with your passion with education?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've always been interested in space. Just growing up and, watching all the NASA astronauts go up and, the shuttle programs and all that. And so like that interest has always been there. Um, I think I just kind of took this weird roundabout way to get there. I mean, even before teaching, right? I was a chemist. Um, I'm in a chemist that was pre-med and was thinking about going into medicine, but realized I don't really like the medicine aspect. I like the people aspect of it. And then that's also the aspect I was missing from like working in a chem lab was the people. And so then I kind of took a break from that and just realized like, I don't think I want to be in chemistry. Not that I didn't love chemistry, right? Love the sciences, but like it's just not the job for me. So then I got opportunity to go to China for a summer to teach, and I just fell in love with teaching. Um, and then I decided to kind of stay for a year, see if that is my path. And then that kind of just brought me down to like actually pursuing my master's in teaching and all that. But all throughout that, I think space has always been an interest of mine. And as a teacher, even every time NASA opened up one of their astronaut application rounds, I would apply, knowing that very, very well I probably won't get in. But just
You gotta try.
drop my name in the bucket. Yeah. And so it's always been an interest of mine. And I think, that idea of exploration and, seeing what's out there and knowing more about ourselves based on what's out there has like been an interest of mine. And I taught astronomy I taught high school astronomy, for a bit too. And so the topics have always been really interesting to me. And then while I was teaching in an international school in China, I I saw this opportunity to work for UW, um, in their Gear Up program. And that kind of brought me down the path of, getting students excited to like actually go pursue STEM careers. And there's just so many different options out there. And then, in that I was kind of working with, the then director of Club for the Future, and they were doing postcards. We were doing postcards with our students, and then this opportunity opened up. So then I jumped on that one too. So, I mean, it's kind of like opportunities have opened, and I've just taken it, and it's now brought me to something that I'm really passionate about, space and STEM education. So it's kind of a great, I don't know, synergy with all the things that I'm interested in.
I love that. And as you were talking, like I could feel that passion that you have for teaching and for educating and how that ended up combining with space. It's very lovely and it's wonderful how you're able to come back into this industry and, do what you're loving, being excited about what you're doing every single day and combining all of your different passions together. Because as when you think about space, the first career that comes to mind isn't necessarily the education route. You think of, oh, aerospace engineer. You don't even think of all the other, interdisciplinary careers in this industry. And so to know that there are roles like this, it is pretty incredible. And, if someone is an educator right now and they want to get more involved in the space industry, what does the job market look like right now for teachers and educators, apart from working at like a school level to enter this industry?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think there's like a lot of great kind of openings into the space industry and like an understanding about, some of the things that's going on with like space education and companies. There's some great conferences that are for educators that are interested in teaching space topics. And those are also great ways to network with, industry folks and folks that, work in schools or with organizations. So Space Center Houston has one called SEEK. It's the Space Education Explorers Conference. Don't quote me on that. But that one's a great one. That one happens every February, and they bring any, you can sign up for the conference, and they have great tours, but also like great workshops on how to like teach these space topics or bring in, these different organizations that are doing space and STEAM education into your classroom. The other one is the Astronauts Memorial Foundation does one called Space every year in June. That one's out of Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. That one is the Spaceport Area Conference for Educators. And that one's also a great space one, right? And so I think these are good beginnings, right? You start teaching these space topics in your classroom. You go to these conferences and you get more information. You meet people who are doing this work in like nonprofits or museum and science centers or industry, and you kind of just start making those connections. And it's a really tight-knit group of people that are in space education, right? Very passionate educators that are great at doing what they do, but also like really passionate about space and bringing those concepts into their classroom.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, I think, being an educator, first exposing yourself to this field and, finding opportunities. You mentioned museums. I'm sure NASA has tons of education opportunities for teachers, as well as like private companies. There's a lot of smaller ways you can get involved and get your foot in the door, either as a volunteer or as an attendee for a conference, and building that network and that community for people you want to be like or, have as future colleagues. So definitely, I think that's wonderful advice for current educators who want to get into this space.
Mhm.
And, in this journey of yours, did you have any obstacles? And if so, how are you more importantly able to overcome them? I think it's sometimes easy to see, where you are right now and the incredible work you're doing with Blue Origin. And it can be a little bit intimidating for someone who's just figuring it out. So, did you have any obstacles and how did you overcome them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, seeing as how many times I changed jobs. The thing is though, I think, everyone has obstacles. Everyone feels these lulls in their careers or jobs, and you're just like, is this what I want to do? I don't know. Should I be doing something else? Is this, what I'm good at? Like, there's always so many questions that come up. And I think for me, and it's the same thing that we kind of teach in students, right? This idea of grit and perseverance. And it's like this idea that yeah, this is what I'm doing right now, but it might not be what I'm doing in 2 years, and that's okay. And I'm going to take opportunities as they come, right? And so, this idea of just like always kind of saying yes to things that come up, right? Like, oh, I don't know if that's something that I should be doing or I want to be doing, but I'm just going to say yes to it and see where it takes me and go with it. And I always think it's okay to also just try something else if it feels like something's not working, right? If you feel like you're in a rut and you're not learning and you're not growing, then yeah, do something else. Like try to find something else that you're more passionate about, or do something that is a better fit, or, it's okay to always be changing, right? I think we get in this mindset, it's just like, oh no, I'm down this path, I should do this. And, really it's okay. You don't have to be doing that. You don't have to be, staying where you are. Like you could do something else. And yeah, so I think it's just like that grit of just keep powering through and keep going and just saying yes to things and trying new things. And eventually, you might hit something that you're really passionate about that brings you down another path. So,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think sometimes, and this thought crosses my mind too as like a student right now, I think we tend to live somewhat of a prescriptive life where you're like, oh, I've got to do A to go to B to go to C to go to D, and you're living this like, pattern of what other people expect someone to do at your age. And it can be a little bit intimidating when you're like, oh, well, I don't like step B? So should I like, just force myself to get through it, or should I do something else that I'm, maybe a little bit different, unconventional, but I really like? And so I think sometimes getting out of that headspace of what is conventional and doing something that really excites you, even if it's something completely different, and recognizing what you don't want is also really important. Like you said, when you were in like, in a lab, you were like, maybe I don't like being in a lab necessarily. I like being with the people and doing chemistry, but just not by myself in like one isolated room. So figuring that out is also important, and being okay with changing, I think, is also important. So definitely as a student myself, I think that advice is very helpful to try kind of getting out of that prescriptive mindset. And if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Oh. I mean, I think it is the try new things, say yes to all opportunities, regardless of whether or not you think you are capable, right? I think, you know, talking myself out of imposter syndromes or, like, is that meant for me? Like, can I actually do that? Like, I had no idea, right? When I became that STEM program manager for University of Washington, I was a teacher before. I had no idea about program management, right? So like just just talking yourself out of self-doubt, right? And then like just taking opportunities and running with it and saying yes. Um, and that it's going to be okay. I think, regardless of what you decide and what path you take, it's going to be okay, right? Because in the end, like you are, I mean, for lack of a better word, but you are your own champion, right? So like you can decide what you get out of any experience. And experience is a learning experience, and no experience is a bad experience. So like just try all the things and take what you can from it and keep growing.
That's amazing advice. I think that's like the perfect way to kind of wrap up this interview. I think, learning not only about this growing aerospace education field and the work that club is doing, but also your own personal journey into this space has been really inspiring for me. I think a lot of times, like you said, we tend to doubt whether to take certain opportunities or stay in this one path that we decided when we were like 10 years old and just kind of going with it, but also recognizing that, hey, like you can make changes, take new opportunities, take those risks to really follow your heart and do something you're really passionate about. And it's been wonderful to hear from an educator's perspective, someone who's working in more of that commercial space side, how students are getting involved into the space and how it is important for companies to encourage teachers to talk about space in classrooms. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to, be able to talk to you and to learn about club and everything that's going on. So thank you so much, Kristen, for taking your time to do this today. I'm sure any educator, student, or even professional who's listening to this will be inspired by your story and your journey. So thank you again for doing this interview.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.